I am Claudia Fernandez, and I am Clinical Associate Professor and Director of the Spanish-Based Language Program at the University of Illinois in Chicago. And I'm interested in language learning and curriculum design, specifically through task-based language teaching. I am also interested in materials development, materials use and evaluation, and in the acquisition of Spanish through input processing. And you can reach me at cfernand5@uic.edu. And I'm going to talk about task structure, lesson plan, and curriculum design in TBLT. Let's start with some teachers' concerns. I've heard sometimes something like, I know what a task is, but how do I design a lesson plan around a task? What happens before a task or after a task? I've heard tasks should guide the curriculum, but how does that curriculum based on task look like, right? Or how does one go about it? Why answering to these questions is important? It is because the instructors are key players in enacting the written curriculum and making sure the goals of the lesson and the language program are achieved. We need to understand the written curriculum. So that means that we need to know what is the nature of tasks, right? The rationale behind the task structure and sequence, and implementation of task-based language teaching, among other issues. And so that is the focus of this presentation today. Let's start with the basics by asking ourselves, how do I know a task is a task? Lara Brajkowski and Alison Mackey offer 4 questions that we should ask ourselves in order to answer these questions. The first one is, my activity or my task focus on meaning making, right? The thing that I want to do, is it focus on meaning making and not on language grammar? Are learners interacting together to find out something that they don't already know? Learners have to rely on their own language resources to solve the problem and do the task, and activity have a clear communicative outcome. That is, the outcome is not accurately using the vocabulary of the grammar, but rather a communicative one. If we answer yes to these 4 questions, we have a task. So let's see what is the structure of a task. This is important because it's related to the implementation process and lesson planning. We have 3 main proposals. We have Jane Willis and Dave Willis task cycle, something that is commonly called task cycle. We have also Ellis pre-task, main task, and post-task stages. And we have Mike Long's pedagogic task sequence approaching a target task. I'm going to talk about each of them in the following slides according to Dave and Jane Willis. They say that a task should start with a pre-task phase in which the teacher introduces the topic, and the task information may be some useful language that students may want to use to perform the task. They can offer a model of how the task is performed. Then we go to the task cycle. And this task cycle, it has the task, the actual task, the planning to report the findings to the class. Now students plan to report the findings to the class, and then the actual reporting to the class. And this task cycle also includes language and language focus, right, after reporting to the class, which is something like analysis of the erroneous language or the language that was not accurately used, and some noticing or enhancing the attention to these forms or to these linguistic resources that students may want to pay attention to. And one of the things that, in my opinion, is worth in this task structure is that they give a suggestion that says that will provide learners with a recording of others doing the same task, right, as a model to learn from and compare with. So let's see what this looks like. We have the pre-task phase, right? And then after this phase, the students start with a task cycle. You can see here that the task cycle starts right away with the task. Students start with a task with their own resources. When they finish, they get together to plan how they are going to report the findings to the class. Then they actually do the report. After they have finished doing that then the students work in trying to compare, what they did, the task performance, with a sample of a task performance done by more proficient students, or how people usually perform this task. This is to analyze and compare what is that they did with what other people that is more proficient do. And if there is some things that the students want to pay attention to, or the teacher wants to pay attention to, like emerging forms, for example, that are still learning, students are still learning, they can focus on them, right? And see in what ways they can be improved, right? after all this information, students do the task again with the same peers or with different peers. So task structure can be a nice lesson plan. So let's see what is that Ellis has to say about task structure. And as he divides the task in pre-task, main task, and post-task components, right? And he says that the task is essential component in this sequence. And he provides different optional activities, many activities, a number of activities that the teachers can do at each stage. So let's see what this looks like. So we have the pre-task, and here Ellis says that, well, here the students can plan the task. The teacher can prepare a topic, right, by introducing, can model the task as Willis and Willis, and they provide vocabulary or grammar instruction, which he says recommended because then you run the risk that a task is just for students to practice these grammar structures, which is not according to the task-based principle. So you kill your task by doing that. He gives these options, but he says that is not recommended. And then students do the main task. In the main task, the teacher can focus on form. As students need the language to convey their ideas, as the students need the language, so the teacher can give some corrective feedback, and this is the moment in which you can focus on certain linguistic issues. And also, this main task, students can do some planning. They can have access to supporting materials. Maybe they have a surprise element that they didn't know before. The task can have some interim goals or steps in their accomplishment. Then when they are done, there is the post-task stage in which the students can repeat the task. The teacher can give feedback on language use. They can have a model like in Willis. They can reflect on task performance, or they can see the transcription of what they did. Let's see what Mike Long says about task sequences and target tasks. He is a lot of emphasis on needs analysis. He says that language learning goals are identified via needs analysis. And this is the first step in creating a task-based course or task-based curriculum. He says that the goals defined via needs analysis are then conceptualized, or they are concretized in target tasks. And these target tasks are the things that guide the curriculum as opposed to grammar points in more traditional curricula. Then we create pedagogic tasks whose purpose is to support the students, to prepare students in the accomplishment of the target task. Pedagogic tasks are sequenced as they approach the complexity of the target task, so from less complex to more complex. Learners' task performance is assessed with the evaluation criteria with a rubric. So let's see how this looks. We start with the target task based on our analysis, and then you're going to see that there are several pedagogic tasks, a number of pedagogic tasks depending on the target task, that are done by students that serve as stepping stones for the accomplishment of the target task. They go from less complex to more complex. And you can have several target tasks depending on what you found in the needs analysis in your program. For example, in my program, we have 5 target tasks per semester. Each of these pedagogic tasks can be your lesson plan, because they have to be one pedagogic task depending on the time you have in class. We only have 50 minutes sometimes. We can have more than one pedagogic task per lesson plan. But you can have your lesson plans designed around a pedagogic task or around the target task. We call this the task-based module 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is that how many target tasks you identified, and that could be the basis of a task-based curriculum. So I'm going to give you an example from my program. As I said, we start with the target task. Identifying the target task in this case was introducing a person and describe them, a family member of a friend, and then the class decides who is the person that they would like to meet after seeing all these presentations. And we have several pedagogical tasks. In this case, students are prepared to accomplish the target task and go from less complex to more complex. So how do we implement TBLT? I'm going to give you a quick introduction about it. One of the questions we have to ask is, how do we know what final tasks to use for our curriculum? This is accomplished by doing a needs analysis, by identifying the goals of our program. In this cycle that we have the needs analysis, that we start with that, and then this is going to inform the learning goals, which are going to inform which type of tasks we're going to use, and the sequence of the pedagogic tasks. We create the materials based on the target task identified. We do the teaching, then we assess the extent to which the students are able to complete the target tasks. Then we evaluate the cycle to see how are we doing, right? And then revise the needs analysis and the learning goals. So the question is, what are the tasks that learners want or need to do, depending on our context, in the target language, depending on the goals of the students or the need tutors. And this information can be gathered by your curriculum. If you have a mandated curriculum to follow, I'm sure there are communicative goals that we can or ask parents, administration, the very same students, right? What is that they want to accomplish by taking this language, or all the stakeholders that are important in informing our curriculum. So the takeaways that I can offer you is that learning about the rationale behind TBLT written curriculum is an essential first step for its effective enactment, right? There are at least two ways to structure tasks that can inform their implementation, right? Throughout Ellis and Willis, Michael Long's task sequence informs TBLT program and curriculum design, among many other things. This analysis is the first step in the creation and implementation of a TBLT course and to a program or curriculum. Here are the sources that I cited for you to see, and more sources that you might want to explore to enhance the information in this presentation. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you next time. Bye-bye.